Rival political groups in South Korea have returned to the streets of Seoul, marking just over 1 year since former President Yoon Suk Yeol shocked the nation by declaring martial law. The anniversary has become a focal point for supporters and opponents of the ousted leader, exposing the country's enduring political divide. On December 3, 2024, Yoon suspended civilian rule in what became the first imposition of martial law in South Korea in more than 40 years. The declaration triggered nationwide protests, an institutional confrontation inside parliament, and the rapid mobilization of political and legal responses that ultimately led to Yoon's removal from office. 1 year later, the political tension surrounding that moment has not dissipated. On December 6, 2025, rival rallies unfolded across central Seoul, where crowds gathered under competing banners, chants, and messages of grievance. Supporters of Yoon assembled first, waving national and US flags, calling for what they describe as the restoration of the president they elected. Images from the scene show flag-waving demonstrators filling entire blocks, many holding signs demanding the impeachment of the current administration. Wide shots from the rally capture rows of participants singing, holding placards, and repeating chants calling for President Lee Jae-myung to step down. One sign prominently displayed reads, "Impeach Lee Jae-myung," reflecting claims of election fraud that have circulated among pro-Yoon activists since Yoon's ouster. Among the demonstrators is Choi Eun-jung, a 39-year-old restaurant worker who states her reason for joining the rally. In her words, "I came here to raise the call to bring down the Lee Jae-myung administration, to remove the fake president who was elected through a fraudulent election, and to restore President Yoon Suk Yeol, the president we elected, back to office." Her comments echo a persistent narrative within Yoon's support base, which maintains that the 2024-2025 political transition was illegitimate. For many in the rally, the anniversary of the martial law declaration is not viewed as a moment of condemnation, but as part of an unresolved national struggle. Standing near Choi, 8-year-old bus driver Park Boo-hyun also expresses his determination. In a brief statement, he says, "I am prepared to give my life for the country." The pro-Yoon gathering continues with chants, songs, and speeches calling for a political reversal. Supporters wave placards and flags as organizers describe the current administration as unlawful and insist that the former president must be reinstated. Demonstrators repeat allegations of voting irregularities, pointing to what they claim was a fraudulent presidential election that brought Lee Jae-myung to power. Just blocks away and separated by police cordons, anti-Yoon demonstrators hold a simultaneous rally marking the same anniversary, but with a sharply different message. This group views December 3, 2024 as a moment when South Korean democracy faced an immediate threat. For them, the anniversary represents a victory of civilian resistance over what they describe as an illegal seizure of power. Images from the anti-Yoon rally show protesters chanting and holding placards calling for accountability. One sign reads, "Impeach Cho Hee-dae," referring to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Korea, who critics say shares institutional responsibility for what they see as democratic backsliding during the crisis. Close-up footage shows protesters chanting and raising their signs as the demonstrations grow. Many participants emphasize that the martial law attempt required continued vigilance even after Yoon's removal. Choi Jong-won, a 6-year-old anti-Yoon protester, articulates the sentiment felt by many at the rally. In his statement, he says, "This marks the first anniversary of the illegal martial law, and while it carries a sense of retribution and judgment, I am here to celebrate and honor not the martial law itself, but the victory of the people who stopped it." He adds that the political transition that followed Yoon's removal remains incomplete. In another soundbite, he argues that Korean democracy has only been partially restored. As he puts it, all three branches should have changed, the legislative and judicial branches as well, but only the executive branch has changed. So democracy has only been realized by 1/3 so far. The dual rallies underline how deeply the political events of late 2024 and early 2025 continue to shape public debate. For supporters of the former president, the martial law declaration is framed as an act of necessity justified by claims of election fraud. For opponents, it represents an unprecedented overreach of executive authority and an attempted disruption of constitutional order. The confrontations of December 2024 began when Yoon declared martial law amid escalating tensions with the legislature and a standoff over the authority of military leadership. The move suspended key civilian controls and placed armed forces under expanded command. Opposition parties immediately contested the legality of the decree, accusing the president of attempting to cling to power amid political challenges. Mass protests erupted across major cities, and parliamentary leaders initiated emergency proceedings to block the implementation of the martial law order. Within days, legislative and judicial actions constrained the decree, and institutional support for Yoon rapidly eroded. The combined pressure of public demonstrations and political opposition ultimately led to his removal from office. 1 year later, the memory of that confrontation remains vivid in South Korea's political landscape. Supporters of Yoon continue to reject the legitimacy of the Lee Jae-myung administration, while critics argue that the country must still address structural vulnerabilities that allowed the declaration of martial law in the first place. At the December 6th anniversary rallies, these conflicting interpretations took shape in chants, speeches, and slogans. Pro-Yoon demonstrators demanded that the former president be reinstated. Anti-Yoon demonstrators emphasized institutional accountability and the need to safeguard constitutional checks and balances. Footage from the rallies shows the contrast: pro-Yoon groups waving national and US flags, singing in unison, and calling for impeachment of the current administration. Anti-Yoon groups marching with placards, targeting judicial leadership, and insisting that their mobilization a year earlier prevented a constitutional crisis. Authorities deployed police units to maintain separation between the two demonstrations and ensure public safety. Despite the large crowds and emotional political climate, the gatherings proceeded without major incidents reported. As the anniversary passes, the events highlight a country still grappling with the aftershocks of a rare and destabilizing moment in its modern political history. The martial law declaration of December 2024 continues to shape public discourse, polarizing narratives, and institutional debates. Supporters of the former president insist that the allegations of election fraud require investigation and that the current administration lacks legitimacy. Opponents argue that the priority remains strengthening democratic safeguards and ensuring that no executive authority can again attempt to suspend civilian rule. While the rallies express sharply opposing visions of South Korea's political future, they also underscore a central reality: the debate over the martial law declaration and its aftermath remains unresolved. The anniversary demonstrations show no indication that the divide will narrow soon. They reflect the ongoing contest between competing interpretations of legality, democratic legitimacy, and institutional responsibility. As Seoul returns to routine after the rallies, the images and statements from both sides reveal a persistent and deeply rooted tension surrounding one of the most consequential political crises in recent South Korean history. The situation remains defined by conflicting narratives, unresolved grievances, and a divided public 1 year after the martial law attempt.